The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Focus on the stumbling blocks, because those are the things that we need to remove to get to the good stuff, right? And when we talk about autism and the stumbling blocks that come with education, we are almost always talking about challenging behaviors, that there will be things that will crop up in the classroom. And by the way, as a former teacher, I want to remind everybody, it's not always the kids who are on the autism spectrum that are engaging in the challenging behavior. So we've put together a presentation for you, and we've done it before on the show, but it's been a really long time, that talks about dealing with challenging behavior, and it is not autism specific. So I know from having been in a classroom that if you have a young person of any age and any skill ability who is engaging in challenging behavior, you need tools, right? And so that's what we want to talk about. So this is called Dealing with Challenging Behaviors in the Classroom. I just wanted to give that precursor because, there are lots of good things that happen, but we're focusing on the tough stuff today. Okay, so my first question for you is, why aren't you Superman? And why aren't our teachers Superman? Why can't they deal with 37 students in a classroom, 5 who have ADHD, 3 who can't stay in their chairs but don't have a diagnosis of that, 2 kids who have autism, 1 kid who is chewing his pencil eraser, 1 kid who is throwing things at other students, right? Why can't a teacher deal with all of that and educate students? It's ridiculous what we expect of teachers right now. And whenever we're talking with a teacher as a parent of a child with autism, we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, what are these people supposed to be doing? Because the number one thing that they're supposed to be doing is educating our children. But a lot of times that completely goes out the window to deal with challenging behavior. So the whole purpose of this talk is to give us all a toolbox. Because we need tools to be able to get to the good stuff, right? So today's toolkit, we're going to identify the causes of challenging behavior, because guess what? It's not just random, right? We're going to provide basic strategies for dealing with those behaviors. We're going to identify built-in resources within our school system to help with challenging behaviors. And then we're going to give you something better than a cape. And by the way, this is for parents and teachers working together. If you're sitting at home and you're thinking, well, the teacher should just do that, right? I gotta tell you, we need to get you a big old whoopee and get you over that idea, because that is not how the school system works anymore. This is a and I don't know that it ever was, honestly. I don't know. But it is a collaboration, and your child's success depends on how well you collaborate with your school at that IEP meeting, and how helpful you are and how realistic you are about what the teacher can actually do. But once you get on that reality page, you'll be amazed at what a teacher can do. Okay, so that's today's toolkit for you. Okay, first we got to talk about behavior, right? Behavior is something that gets us all fatootsed, and we get, oh, he's doing something, he's doing this, and I don't know what to do about it. I've talked before about the fact that when my son was diagnosed with autism, we got kicked out of the YMCA. And they told us we couldn't bring my son back anymore to any activities or the childcare. because every once in a while he was doing this, and one of the girls said, I don't know what that is, and I don't know what that means, and it's freaking me out, who was working in the child care. Behavior, and we can all roll our eyes and go, what was up with this chick? But the truth of the matter is that we've gotten freaked out by behavior before, right? When our child was in the middle of a tantrum going, I don't know what that is, or we see our kid lining things up and we go, I don't know what that is, right? Teachers get, freaked out about behavior too, especially if you are in charge of 40 lives or 36 lives or 32 lives or 27. If you're in charge of 2 lives and somebody starts engaging in a behavior that takes your focus so you can't watch the other one, you're going to have some emotions about that, right? So it can be really difficult, but we have to go back to lesson number 1, which is that all behavior is communication. They're communicating something. And if you can get your head into that space when somebody is engaging in a behavior, you will take deeper breaths and you will have your higher functioning systems working. So behavior is a means of communication. I love this slide because you look at these kids, right? And if you look at it through that filter, what are they, each and every one of these kids, communicating? Some of them are communicating, I am furious. Some of them are communicating, I'm scared, right? Some, it's all different things. But if we start looking at that, it's much easier to get in there and start doing something. So that's your first filter, is what is being communicated when these behaviors are happening. Okay. Logic dictates, and science has proven that behavior is only maintained when it is rewarding in some way. I call this principle number 1. That's just my whole thing. We learned this in ABA, that any behavior that keeps happening again and again and again means it got a paycheck, right? At some point, it got something worthwhile. So we want to start asking, just like Dr. Phil says, what's the payoff? What's the paycheck? If you see a kid in a classroom and they're behaving in a certain way, what's the payoff for it if it's happening again and again and again, right? Okay, but there's a little bit of an asterisk here. If we think about this, what if we could pick the behaviors that we want a student to maintain and make them rewarding, and make behaviors that are challenging less rewarding so that they lessen or disappear? This is the thing that Dr. Grampiche always talks about, that, it's as if we've got these 2 canisters, right? And one of them, we have behaviors that we want to see increase, right? We absolutely do. And we have behaviors that we absolutely want to decrease. Because if we could change the level in the 2 canisters, how good would our life be? Because as a teacher, the behaviors that you want to increase is someone staying on task, doing their work, paying attention, right? We want them to be able to write their assignments. Whatever the skill level is, for a kindergartner, we want them to be able to sit crisscross applesauce and watch the teacher and respond in unison, right? That's all a part of the lesson plan, right? If we're in 6th grade, we want them to be able to take notes and be watching the teacher and sit in their desk, right? Those are the skills that we want to increase, and there's a bunch more skills that we want to increase. What are the things that we want to decrease? We want to, maybe for a 6th grader, we want to decrease them having disruptive behaviors where they're calling out across the room and talking to their friend and answering a question without raising their hand. Maybe it's the kindergartner that we want to decrease when they kick the student who's next to them because they want them to pay attention to them, or for whatever reason, right? So we're trying to decrease the challenging behaviors and increase the skill level that's appropriate for the child. What if we could do that? What if we could turn it all on its head and make things work? The truth of the matter is we already know how to do that. Science has shown us how to do it. We have the tools to be able to do that. Okay, so we go to ABA, the principles of ABA, it's applied behavior analysis, and we go to the ABCs of behavior. You guys, I talk about this all the time, but we have pretty slides to show it to you today. So remember though, we can only change a child's behavior after we've changed our own. You know who taught me this was Peter Farrig. our first therapist that ever came to our door, he got it from somebody else, but he said this was the light bulb moment for him about ABA, that we can go in and look at a child's challenging behavior, but until we are coming from a point of view of saying, I'm going to change my behavior, we cannot change that child's behavior. Okay, so having said that, it's time for us to really understand what the ABCs are. So the A stands for antecedent. That's what happened before the B. The B is the behavior, and the C is the consequence for the behavior. So, the child comes into class and throws their books on the floor and lays down on the floor and kicks and screams, all right? So something happened. If you think for a second that that is just a random behavior, I gotta tell you, adjust your way of thinking, because something happened. We may never be able to figure out what it was, but something happened. Was it that a kid just tripped in the lunchroom and spread their books on the floor and everybody laughed? Is that why this behavior is happening? Or did somebody just say, I'll pay you $5 to trip and throw your books on the floor? Or did the person have a moment where nobody was paying attention? Something happened that led to them throwing their books on the floor. So whatever that thing was that happened before is the antecedent, right? It's the only word in this that we completely have never heard of before. But the antecedent is what happened before. Then the behavior is that they threw their books on the floor of the classroom, right? But here's what's interesting is that now there's going to be a consequence for it. And sometimes we can control consequences, sometimes we can't. But what happens as a result of this behavior? Did the whole class laugh? Did people applaud? I remember being in a college dining hall, and if something got broken, everybody broke into applause, right? Like, people have an interesting way of reacting sometimes. Does the teacher come over and say, oh my gosh, are you hurt? Are you okay? And helps them get up and is very nice to them, kinder than they ever are? Does the teacher yell at the person and say, what is wrong with you? Why can't you walk into a room without throwing your books on the floor, right? Something happens as a consequence. Behavior doesn't happen in a void. There is always a consequence. So here's the dealy-wheelie about the ABCs of behavior. You can't control the behavior. Oh, I know, right? It's like, what? I can't control the behavior? We've always been taught that, control the behavior, control your kids, control your students, control the behavior. The truth of the matter is you have very little physical control. Once they're over the age of 4, you can say to somebody, don't do that. But if they don't stop it, this is where we get into problems with the police and people trying to strong arm people, because the truth is we can't really control behavior, right? I've got the serenity prayer here. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You can't control the behavior. But you can have the serenity to let go of that and say, I cannot control the behavior. And you can have the courage to change your behavior so that you can change the individual's behavior. And you are going to have the wisdom to understand what is the difference, right? Okay, and now my iPad stopped. Okay, so here's the asterisk here. Huge asterisk here, that you have to know what the function of the behavior is. This is when we get into function, what's the function? So the function is that paycheck. What is the thing that's going on? Because if I look at the behavior, the throwing the books on the floor, and I go, well, that's just unacceptable. So I know about antecedents and I know about consequences. So I'm going to change the consequences and I'm going to punish them for having done that behavior. And that means I'm going to give them a talking to, and I'm going to wave my bony finger in their face, and I'm going to say, you know what? You can't do this anymore. This is not acceptable. Do you see how upset I am about this? This is not acceptable. You are not doing this anymore. Except, oh my goodness, back up. What if the paycheck for throwing the books on the floor was that the individual wanted attention? You just gave it to them. So are we going to see that behavior go down, or are we going to see that behavior go up? If you just gave somebody their paycheck, you're ensuring that they're going to do it again. So suddenly on Tuesday they come in and you go, I yelled at them for that before. Well, I'm going to yell at them again. It didn't work before, but I'm going to yell at them again. And we see that now we get into a pattern of every week that person's going to come in and throw their books on the floor, and we're yelling at them going, I don't understand this, except that we are feeding the flame, right? So if we don't know what the function of the behavior is, we're very likely going to be in deep doo-doo because we're taking guesses at things. Okay, so there's four, I call them the four usual suspects, the four most common functions of a challenging behavior, especially in the classroom. Number one, to get attention. And remember that even if it's negative attention, that counts as attention. That's the hardest one for us all to remember. Second most usual suspect is access to an activity or to an item. We're going to go into all of these in depth. Third is escape, and then the last one is that there's something about it, we call it self-reinforcing, there's something about it that feels good for them. There's a paycheck just intrinsic in the actual behavior. Okay, so take a look at this broken down car here, right? Imagine for a second that your car breaks down and you're like, I don't know what to do. You call a mechanic, right? Why do you call a mechanic? Because you probably don't know how to diagnose what's wrong with your car. You might know how to fix it, right? You might have taken a class and know, okay, I know how to change a spark plug. I know how to change the oil, but you probably, unless you're a mechanic, don't know how to diagnose what's wrong with the car. Okay, so you take your car in and you say to the mechanic, what do they ask you first? They go, what's it doing? And you go, well, it was making a clunk noise, and then this happened, and steam came out, and and then it stopped working. And the mechanic goes, oh, okay. And then what does the mechanic do? The mechanic starts looking at everything, but the mechanic will try to recreate the problem. Why? Because they want to be able to diagnose what's actually happening. Imagine for a second that you didn't do any of that. Imagine that your car broke down and you went, well, I don't know, but I'm going to decide to change the water pump. I'm just going to, I have this feeling inside that maybe it's the water pump, and I'm not going to describe what happened to the mechanic, and I'm not going to have the mechanic look at it. You know what I'm going to just do? I'm just going to replace the water pump. And so you do, right? And lo and behold, it wasn't the water pump. And you just wasted a bunch of time and money. And worse than that, if it was the brake line, you're running the risk of dying because you decided to take it upon yourself to just randomly decide what was wrong. It's not effective, right? So it's the same thing with when we are looking at the function of a behavior. Don't try to diagnose it yourself. Try to get somebody else to look at the behavior. They're going to ask you what was happening. Tell me all the circumstances. It's called a functional behavior assessment. And they will help you to decide. Let's put this to test with some instances and see if we can figure out what the function of the behavior is on our own, non-experts, right? Johnny is biting Miguel. What's the function of the behavior? I leave it up to you. You tell me. We know what the four usual suspects are. Is Johnny biting for attention? Is Johnny biting to get access to someone or something? Is Johnny biting to escape something? Or is Johnny biting because it feels good? Which one do you think it is? Okay, so it's not okay to guess. It's not okay to guess. Why? Because you need the expert to do it. Just like with your car, you're going to waste time and waste money. Functional behavior assessment done by a board-certified behavior analyst. Do you remember when I said at the beginning we're going to talk about what is available to you at your school? Every single school district is supposed to have at least one board-certified behavior analyst working for them. And if they don't have one, they have to pay to contract one to come in. At any point in any school here in the United States, if you're getting notes home from the teacher saying your child is doing this and so, feel free to ask in writing for your school district to do a FBA, a functional behavior assessment, so that they can put together a behavior intervention plan based on what the function of the behavior is. The school will they'll have you sign a thing saying that you agree for your child to be assessed for a functional behavior assessment. Make sure it's being done by a board-certified behavior analyst. Ask them, who is your BCBA? They will be impressed that you know these terms, and that will be good, right? But they can determine what the function is. so that especially essential when there is injurious behavior involved, whether it's injurious to the child or to someone else. So let's say that the FBA in this case, that Johnny is biting Miguel. Johnny is biting other children and toys on a regular basis. His mother, in this particular instance, reports that this started after he started taking methyl B12 shots. There has also been a recent spike in Johnny's progress in speech. What is the function in this case? And remember that the FBA person comes in and they're like Sherlock Holmes, and they take information. They'll observe Johnny in a circumstance where he's biting. But in this case, the function of the behavior may be that it's self-reinforcing. That we know with methyl B12 shots that some children react by it makes the nerves tingle in their mouth, and that sometimes the feeling of that is alleviated by them biting on things. So we're pretty sure that this is why he is biting. So they create the behavior intervention plan, and Johnny is given some sort of a bite toy, and they make them for kids that are older. Jem had a great necklace that looked like a yin and yang, and he could bite on that because he actually had this. He was chewing on his pencils and things. He wasn't chewing on the kid next to him, but when he had his B12 shots. So for a short period of time, they're going to allow him, while he's adjusting to the B12, to bite on this necklace or fidget toys. They have things that are on the end of pencils that are safe for them to chew on. And in this way, he stops biting Miguel, and he's able to stay in his classroom and not ostracized from his peers because we knew what the function of the behavior was. Now let's stop for a moment and assume that that wasn't the circumstance. Instead, for this FBA, it comes back that Johnny only bites Miguel, and it's only ever Miguel, and it's only when Miguel is playing with a playground ball. When Johnny bites Miguel, Miguel drops the ball and runs away, leaving Johnny to play with the ball. So what's the function of the behavior for this time? Well, maybe for this one, the BCBA reveals that it's access to an activity or an object. He wants the ball. He bites Miguel. Miguel drops the ball, and he gets the ball. Now, maybe he tried that on Susie, and Susie kicked him back. And so he doesn't bite Susie anymore. He's only biting Miguel because Miguel every time is dropping the ball. So in this instance, it's really important that we learn that we teach Johnny that when he bites Miguel, he never gets the ball. We are going to make sure that, first of all, we're going to protect Miguel and try to make sure that a circumstance happens where Johnny learns how to appropriately ask for a ball, and we're going to give Johnny access to a ball when he appropriately asks for it. But in the event that we mess up and we try to block that Johnny can bite Miguel, right? But if he ever does bite him again, it is swift that ball goes away and that he does not get the reward for it. The reward has been getting, even for 2 seconds, to play with that ball. So the VIP is that Johnny is only given access to the ball when he correctly asks for it, and he has gone a prescribed amount of time without biting. Initially, that may only be seconds. Over time, the length of time is made longer. We're going to try to manipulate the antecedent. Remember, what do we have the courage to take control over? We're going to manipulate the antecedent, teach him how to ask for the ball, and we're going to give him the ball every single time. Like, we might have just a program ball that has Johnny's name on it, and every time he asks for it, he gets to play with it, and no other child gets to play with that until we can get, once we get that functional communication, Johnny's not going to need to bite Miguel anymore, right? All right, imagine for a second that the FBA came back, and in this time, it revealed that Johnny bites Miguel when Miguel is working quietly. When he bites, the teacher comes over and gives Johnny the lecture about not biting the bony finger. And sometimes he's given a timeout in a corner of the room. While in timeout, other students look and giggle at Johnny. So what's the function of the behavior? In this instance, there's at least an element of attention in all likelihood. He gets the attention from the teacher when he bites Miguel, and if he does enough of it and he gets in timeout, the other kids point at him and giggle at him. Remember that even bad attention is good attention for kids who have an empty bucket. And I gotta say, in a classroom, more often than not, this is the culprit, my friends. the almighty attention right here. And here's the good news about that is that this is so easy to fix. Oh my goodness, as a teacher, when somebody taught me this and said, they didn't teach me the 4 usual suspects, they taught me a different method, which is identifying which type of kid is which, that's an engaging and challenging behavior. But it's the same thing, just looking at it from a different point of view. And they called these kids the empty buckets. And then in every single classroom, there's at least 5 empty buckets. And what you need to do as a teacher is to get to the child and put something in their bucket before they feel the emptiness. It's like feeding the baby before they're so hungry that they're crying, right? It's what they tell us when we work out, that if you get to the point where you're feeling thirst, you're already dehydrated, so you got to give the water beforehand. Same thing with attention. I can personally attest to this, that when I went into a pretty tough school here in Los Angeles to teach, and I came in after 9/11, and their original teacher had left after 9/11 and said, I can't be here. It's not worth it to be here. And these kids were feeling bereft. And I came in on November 1st, and one of my students, on like my second or third day there, he had been able to get rid of every other teacher that had come in the interim between 9/11 and November 1st by intimidating them and scaring them. And he wanted attention. He wanted people to notice him. And so he would take AA batteries and throw them at the head of the teacher. And I felt it sail past my ear, and he threw it so hard it cracked the blackboard behind me. And I continued with my discussion as if it didn't happen. And that was interesting to him, because I did not give him the paycheck of the attention for it, right? And I did not leave as a matter of, but what I quickly did was found ways to give him attention from the minute he walked in the classroom, and would ask him questions and never gave him a moment. I asked him to be my assistant and to hand out papers and to stay close to me, because I was going to count on him. And I'm proud to say that that student, it was the following year, was the student of the month, and justifiably so. You fill those empty buckets and they are fabulous. But important to remember, the big asterisk here is that attention does not have to be positive to be rewarding. Once you get your head around that, you find the way to be there beforehand and give the positive attention. They prefer positive attention, but if all you're offering up is negative attention, they're happy to take it. Okay, so in our last FBA, imagine different circumstances. Johnny bites Miguel every day during the daily math quiz. After he bites Miguel, Johnny is given a timeout. He is sent to sit in the corner and is not able to finish the math quiz. Can you guess what the remaining function behavior is? It's escape. And as adults, we engage in this probably more than any other. But by biting Miguel, Johnny knows that he's going to get in trouble and that it's going to get him out of the thing that he's doing. And this happens with little kids, but we'll see this more common with the older kids as well. So our new behavior intervention plan, before each math quiz, Johnny is placed in an isolated desk where he's required to work on the quiz. With escape, we never want to give the escape for the activity, because we're giving the paycheck. However, Johnny is given the ability to take short breaks while working on the quiz. He must answer a prescribed number of questions before breaks. The number of questions is lengthened over time, and Johnny is taught appropriately to request those breaks. And also, we need to be working on math skills in a way that's really rewarding for Johnny, so that he doesn't feel the need to have to escape. Right? Because he's so desperate to escape, because he doesn't have the skill level, that he's biting somebody over it. It's just communication. It's dangerous communication, but it's just communication. So there's our lady with her car. She's calling the expert. You call the expert, you ask them to come and diagnose the problem, and then you know what the function of the behavior is so that you can appropriately address it. And you say to yourself, and I still do this, well, do I really need a BCBA? Can I try to do it on my own? Sometimes there are multiple functions and it can get complicated. Like, what if now they are engaging in the behavior. They want to escape from it, but they also get the attention of the teacher. So we want to make sure it has our behavior intervention plan fits the actual function, because if we don't, we're going to waste time, and especially when it's injurious behavior, we could put the child at risk or other children at risk. We never want to we never want to leave it up to chance, right? And you know, if it's something that's minor that's happening and you want to try it yourself to figure out what it is, that's fine. But if it doesn't work, you've got to bail and you've got to get a BCBA. You do need to remember that sometimes there'll be an extinction burst. It's best to be dealing with a BCBA, and schools have them, so why wouldn't you? Ask for the FBA, ask for the BCBA. Okay, do teachers need to be Superman? Do you need to be Superman? We don't count on our teachers to know what the function of the behavior is. That's inappropriate, right? That's going to the hardware store looking for spaghetti and milk. Right? This is not going to make sense, right? The teachers are there to teach. The behavior interventionists are the BCBAs. They're board certified. They're there to decide what the plan is, and then the teacher implements it. You need to figure out at your school ask before you need them. Who's the BCBA here? You know, you can use, it actually says CARD e-learning, but the thing that you would want to use here is the Institute for Behavioral Training, which is ibehavioraltraining.com. And you can take data on things as a parent, and you can ask a teacher to take data, and you can ask an aide to take data, but you would never ask the teacher to do the functional behavior assessment. If you're in a pinch, and like if you're in another country and you don't have a board certified behavior analyst, there is something in skills that's called the CIFA, and it's the CARD Informal Functional Assessment for Behavior, which will be very useful. But lean into the BCBAs in your school. Super duper important that you need to do that. Okay, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? This is what, great question, right? None of us are ever going to know the answer to this. But children will start to, we've got a couple of magic X's here. I've got 2 minutes. So a challenging behavior happens and it gets fed, right? And it prevents the skill from happening. If you teach the skill, you will see that the behavior goes down. But in a classroom, sometimes that's going to work, and sometimes we have to deal with a challenging behavior. But we get this magic X on our graphs, that when we change up the antecedent and the consequences of these things, we can make the challenging behaviors go down, and it will go up at the same amount that the skill is being acquired. They don't need the challenging behavior. They don't need the communication anymore, the negative communication, to get their needs met. We are here with Dr. Humera. See, I knew I was going to say it wrong. I got it right 3 times out of 4.
Right.
Shaw, but Dr. Shaw, and you are a dentist, and you were a general dentist, but now you specialize in working with children?
I'm a general dentist.
Okay.
But ever since I graduated, I've been very lucky to work only with kids.
Okay.
I haven't looked in an adult mouth for like last 10 or 11
Lucky
years.
you.
Yes, wants to do that.
I consider myself very, very lucky for that.
And we've got a lot of different things that we're going to talk about with you, not the least of which is the fact that you are the author of this new book, Sam and the Sugar Bug, and we're going to be talking about that. But we want to start by asking you, what are some quick tips that parents can really get their arms around that will help to make a trip to the dentist be a little bit less frightening for a child who has special needs?
That is a very good question.
Good, I'm glad.
Yes. The most important thing is to get an early start. The first checkup of your child should be at his first or her first birthday, right after that. And after that, you're going to do it every 6 months.
Okay.
What that really does is, first of all, it familiarizes the child with the office and the dentist. He's going to, when he goes there over and over again, he's going to be more comfortable there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a happy place for them, a fun place to visit. I know for my son it is.
Yes, yes. Also, you know, when you're taking them every 6 months, it becomes a routine. Routine is very important for a special need kid.
Of course.
And also, another thing that comes out of this is, let's say you went to a dentist at the age of 1, you didn't like the dentist, right? You have a lot of time to, you know, every time go and see which is the right one. That'll give you more time.
Okay.
Also, if you're just taking a child to a dentist when he or she is in pain, think about it. Like you have a 5-year-old child or 6-year-old child, never taken him to dentist, right? Suddenly he's in pain and goes, "Mom, my tooth hurts, let's go." So you're taking him. That is inevitably going to follow with treatment.
Right,
Obviously, he's not hurting for nothing.
No,
right?
he'll associate it with a
So
very negative experience as
so
opposed to a positive
if he's
experience.
in pain, the least he's going to need a filling or an extraction or a crown or one of the treatments. It's not a very exciting thing for a first visit. Right? So that is going to leave a sour taste in his mouth, and he may not get over the fear ever. So you never want to do that. First birthday, early start, and often every 6 months. It might surprise you that patients that I've had from their early childhood, some of the parents bring them to me every 3 months, just so they don't forget.
Right.
And obviously special needs, like I said, it is not easy for any child, leave apart special needs. Dentistry is not circus. How much ever we sugarcoat is going to dentist, even I'm scared when I go. Obviously, you're having a person sitting around on your head. You have them, obviously giving anesthesia. So it's really not fun. We can make it better for them, obviously. So the thing to remember, early start and often, as often as 6 months.
Well, let's take a break and we'll come back and find out about.
I want to hear more about this wonderful book, Sam and the Sugar Bug, but I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can get it, because we have some copies of this book to give away, but you have free copies of it that they can get on the iPads, correct?
Sam and the Sugar Bug was a print, but then I made it available on iBooks just because I realized how much kids nowadays are relying on technology. iPad has become a leading tool for kids, especially with special needs.
There we go.
So,
especially those with autism.
Yes.
And it's free. We love free.
Yes, I have made it free from last 6 months, and I will continue to keep it free for a couple of months more. So I want you guys to download it. Very easy to download on your App Store. App Store is always on the screen. Search for iBooks. iBooks is a free app. It's Apple's library.
Right.
It's where you can download a ton of books, some paid, some free.
Yes.
So once you download iBooks, go to the store and search for Sam and the Sugar Bug. It will open up the page. It will say free. Click on it, put in the password, you'll have the book free for life.
And we did that this morning, and so that's actually what you saw is our copy up here on our iPad, so easy enough to do. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk more about Sam and the Sugar Bug and some other things that parents need to know, like how do you choose whether to do have the child put completely to sleep or give them just mild sedation. So all of that and more, stick with us. Back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. With us in the studio right now, we're having a really good time talking with Dr. Shah. She is a dentist, and we've been getting some advice from her about how to get our kids who have special needs to the dentist and have them not be frightened. And we've been looking through her book, Sam and the Sugar Bug, and we're loving it.
Yeah, we've got Evil Randy is a great character in here that, he has to get kicked out of Sam's mouth, and all his friends have been invited into Sam's mouth, and I know my son loves hard copy books. So Dr. Shah has been kind enough to bring us about 20 copies of these. So if you would like, write us here at Autism Live, and we can send these out to you. First come, first serve, right?
Absolutely.
But
and
you can get it free.
Prefer to, I love it that your child prefers the hard book. My son prefers to use his iPad.
Right.
And if your child is like that, you can get it for free. You can download it. And the doctor was just telling us, go to iBooks and then look for Sam and the Sugar Bug. So, and it's free right now. So tell us, so you're a dentist and you're working with kids. How did this book come about?
Well, like I said, I've been very, very lucky and fortunate to work with kids ever since I graduated. So it's not very easy to get a child to walk into the dentist's office, have him sit on the chair and navigate his mouth. You know, it's pretty challenging for every child.
Right.
So I over the years, I realized that when I was looking in their mouth, I would tell them, oh, I'm looking at the bugs. Look, I see one bug. And they would let me do it.
Yeah.
And when I was like, oh, how many do you see? How many? And, and then I realized, oh my God, the more you have to come down to their level.
Yeah, you made it visual. You made it a conceptual thing they could understand.
You know, with kids, you have to come down to their level.
Of course.
Otherwise, you will not get to them. And then the most common question that I always had with the parents was, how can I get him to brush?
Yes.
Or her to brush?
Yeah.
That is like the question I hear every day.
And then the one after that is, how do I get them to floss?
Yes, exactly. So these were my two inspirations. So once, I realized that, and then I was like, okay, I can put it together. Not only will it help me, because as you go through Sam and the Sugar Bug, it also explains the treatment, right? And it has the sound of the drill, which familiarizes in the end when it says, I'm going to clean out the sugar bugs.
Right.
Kelly added the sound of Kelly Flitzer is the narrator and the sound effects, who did an amazing job, and of course the illustrator who made it come to life, Javier Gonzalez. The sound of the drill, when they hear it and they go to office, and when you're fixing their teeth, they already are kind of familiar to it.
So clever. And we actually have a video from your website of the book. Emily, can we show that right now? This is Sam and the Sugar Bug.
Sam and the Sugar Bug by Dr. Shaw. Layla had been taking good care of her teeth. She would always brush her teeth in the morning and at night before going to bed. Layla's brother Sam would sometimes get lazy and would forget to brush his teeth, especially at night. One night, Sam had dinner and went to sleep without brushing his teeth. Randy, the evil sugar bug, was looking for food and was very hungry. Randy snuck into Layla's room and found nothing. Randy went from room to room looking for food until at last he entered Sam's room.
I smell food,
said Randy with an evil grin. Evil Randy followed the scent and it led him to Sam's mouth. Randy jumped into Sam's mouth and said,
Really fun.
We were just talking with Dr. Shaw about this passion of yours the fact that you actually wrote this book, had it designed and, the illustrations, then put it into an ebook, had the narration done, you've offered this for free. This is really a passion of yours.
Yes, working with kids and making things easy for them is my passion.
And when I asked
get excited about it.
When I asked you if you had anybody with special needs in your family, you said my patients are my family.
Yes, the fact is I don't have any special need child in my family, but every day I see a ton of them. So they become a part of my life.
It's really remarkable.
So sweet.
I see all the kids, but because whenever you have a children's office, most of the adults won't see them, which I would never recommend any child to go to an adult setup. So most of the special needs come to be a children's office.
Right.
Really remarkable. And you had mentioned before that that there are ways that the book can help a child to be able to brush. And I know I'm always concerned about, I can get my child to brush, but I'm concerned about, is he brushing effectively? So what advice, I know you've got a visual aid over there, help us.
Yes, it looks kind of ugly because of my work back in the days when I was a student and I had to practice, so kind of found this and it looks like funny, but I think we can handle it.
It's okay.
We can go ahead. The most important things with the kid to brush is I really want the parents to do it when they are
Okay.
young.
They're young.
Well, first of all, age 1 to 3, you have no choice but to
Right.
brush
Yes,
yourself.
of course they don't really.
When you go on from 3, let them do it, but you got to tell them, look, there's Randy in there, there are bugs in there. I think they're hiding somewhere. Oh, I see there one. I got to clean it.
So make it fun.
Yeah, make it fun. Make it fun. So important thing to remember is you need not only to brush the teeth, but the gums too.
Yeah.
Okay? So make circular motions. See how I'm getting the gums too? Because if you're just brushing teeth and skipping the gums, the bacteria collect along the gums. They will cause the infection of the gums, which is, of course, called gingivitis.
Yes.
The plaque will accumulate, and which eventually will lead to cavities too, apart from the gum disease.
Okay.
So every time you brush, make circular motions, go around on the gums, in the back, and very important, inside, towards the tongue in the back is pretty challenging.
Okay.
So make sure you're doing that. Important thing is not only just to brush, how do you get a good access to the patient?
Yeah.
I did get a picture of knee to knee. That's how I do my exams with patients less than age of 3. That's my husband right there.
Okay.
We took this picture early in the morning. So you hold it, one of you, if you have help, that's really good. If you can't do it every day, at least 3 times a week, you put the child's legs around your waist.
Okay.
The person who has it around the waist holds the arms, and then the other person, brushes the teeth. You will get a better access and better look at what you're doing.
Wow.
And also, if your child always fights you, which my son did till he was 2.5,
Right.
irrespective, like I said, every child fights.
Right.
brushing.
So don't be put off by that. It's common.
Believe me, I fought my child. I sat on him a couple of times, and I didn't have help because I'd rather brush his teeth than have him go through the
Right.
dental treatment. So
Right.
you're not the only ones out there
Okay.
who's having tough time. Every mom is having a tough time, and this is a very, very effective way to get it done.
Okay. Now, what about flossing? Because we've talked about brushing. My son loves to brush, and I think half of it is eating half the toothpaste, but which is kind of a problem. We have to make sure he only uses the proper amount of the toothpaste.
Yes, I was
because
going to go there. I'm going to
Okay,
tell you the tips
okay,
for that.
all right.
About flossing, stick flossers. I have with my son and my
Yes.
patients. The little stick ones. I have seen they work better because the strings are long, just to get.
that's
Especially with
hard.
a special need, they have sensory issues. So if you get your hands in there,
Right.
they are not going to like it. So stick flossers, use them, and like I said, tell them in between there. I see Randy. I'm going to take it out.
Okay.
Very important.
So should the parent do the flossing in the beginning to get the child used to it if they're having a hard time?
like I said, till 3, you do all this stuff.
Okay, but what about even with a 10-year-old? If the 10-year-old's not really getting those
You go
areas?
after.
Okay.
Okay.
You go
They do
after.
it, and then we go after.
Okay.
Now, this is a very important question that I want to bring up is which toothpaste to use.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay? Because a lot of kids with special needs do not like the taste and they swallow the toothpaste, okay? Remember, the mechanical action of brushing teeth is great, so don't make toothbrush an issue. Of course, the fluoride in it helps, but
Okay.
mechanical action is more important than anything else other than for brushing and flossing. So
Okay.
I get a lot of parents, oh, he doesn't like the toothpaste. Don't worry about it. Toothpaste is not so important. Safe to swallow till they are 3, okay? Till they are 3, use safe to swallow because they're going to eat it.
Right.
There are a lot of toothpaste out there that you can use, and try different ones till you
And
find the right.
fluoride is important.
I do fluoride every 6 months at my office.
Okay.
But when they're less than 3, personally, I choose not them
To put the
swallow it.
fluoride, because they swallow it.
They swallow
Okay.
it, less than 3.
Okay.
And then, choose the right taste for your patient.
Okay.
Get different ones, different
Okay.
brands, till you have the right one.
We're pretty much out of time, unfortunately. And I know we wanted to briefly mention, because I want people to be able to hear from you, that the idea of having a bottle when children.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you,
And we've
that's
got a
very
couple of
important.
pictures that I think we should show.
So I've been working with kids, and every day I see kids that have extensive
Yeah.
treatment around from age of 2 to 5. It's called nursing bottle syndrome.
Okay.
Nursing bottle syndrome, what happens is if your child after once, you're supposed to be brushing teeth and not wake up in the middle of the night to feed them.
Yes.
However, if you continue to feed them, they'll fall asleep, they'll keep that last amount of milk in their mouth.
Yes.
And that rots their teeth.
Okay.
Okay, and we have, look at this.
Yes,
Look
that
at this.
is-
That child was how old?
5 years.
Oh,
So that's not even putting them to bed with a bottle. That's not brushing that's giving them something to drink and sending them to bed without brushing teeth.
No, one is with sending them
There's
to bed.
another one.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a 17-month
Okay.
or less than 2. No, one thing is sending them to bed without brushing their teeth and falling. The most important thing is all through the night. Sometimes kids wake up, breastfeed, sleep,
Okay.
wake up, breastfeed, sleep. So if they are, or a bottle. I'm not against breastfeeding.
Right.
I
Okay,
love
yes.
breastfeeding. for
breastfeeding
kids.
or bottle, but they're keeping the milk in the mouth
That
all
is the
night.
point I want to make
Okay.
here.
Okay,
So
great.
very important that after first birthday you start teaching them to drink with a straw. And if you get them to brush their teeth and sleep, wake up in the morning. Very hard to do that. If you're not able to do that, you're still breastfeeding or giving the bottle. Keep a bottle filled with water by your side. When you're done breastfeeding or with the bottle, stick the bottle in their mouth with
So they
water.
rinse it.
So it washes. They'll suck on it. The last part in their mouth will be water.
Okay.
Save your child.
All right.
Nobody wants to go through such an extensive
Okay.
treatment.
No.
Really?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you so much.
And juice. Can I say one more
Yeah,
thing?
Yes,
juice.
yes.
Please do not give them a lot of juice. 4 ounces of juice a day, one time with a meal. Rest of the day, water
Okay.
and milk with the meals. Juice, if you go to park, fill or outside or have a sippy cup filled with juice or bottle filled with juice all day long, they're sucking, it will give them nursing bottle syndrome.
Okay. Very important to know. We thank you so much.
You're
I learned a lot, and remember, we have a lot of copies here of Sam and the Sugar Bug. So if you'd like to have a copy for your child, a hard copy, autographed by Dr. Shaw, we'll be happy to send.
Our very special guest right now in the studio, board certified behavior analyst, Angela Persicki is here with us. And Angela, we've asked you today to give us a quick rundown of ABA and all the different techniques that are used within ABA so that a parent can understand when somebody says we're going to be doing ABA with your child, what it should entail and what it should look like.
Okay. I first want to start by backing up a little bit to talk about what ABA actually is.
Okay.
And ABA is within the science of behavior and its application called behavior analysis. And then ABA is the application of that, so applied behavior analysis. And this really involves application to socially significant behaviors. But also ABA is also the tradition of using science to determine what types of procedures and tools would be best effective in different settings, and publishing those and disseminating those. That is ABA. It is this broader field, and it does not actually just apply to autism. It applies to anything anybody does. If a person is doing it, it's behavior, and it's within the subject matter of behavior analysis.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, there is also behavior analytic practice within the field, behavior analytic service delivery. And that's what you'll see with all of our agencies. You'll see behavior analytic service delivery. It's based on the principles of behavior analysis.
Okay.
So when someone says, we do ABA, it's really you're doing a behavior analytics service delivery, because ABA is a broader field.
All right.
And does not just apply to the field of autism necessarily.
Okay.
So within that, we have all types of procedures and different methods for teaching. So you'll hear early intensive behavior therapy, and that would include discrete trial training, maybe naturalistic environmental training. Some include pivotal response training. And so these, so PRT, NET, DTT, there are all these different methods of teaching that are based on applied behavior analysis and the science. So they have been thoroughly evaluated in the scientific arena to show that they are effective procedures. Okay. So that is really like a broad broad analysis of what ABA is, and then to where you are with your child in the home when you have a supervisor come in and therapists come in. That would be the service delivery part. But then we get into the different methods of
Okay.
delivering treatment.
So if I could recap for just a second and tell me if I'm right in this, it's like there's a big umbrella of ABA, and within that there are many different techniques that you would use to apply the principles of ABA.
Exactly.
But it has to be specific to what's going to make the most effective teaching in that moment with that child, depending on where they are skill-wise.
Exactly, and that's what's so great about this field is that it's individualized to the person in their environment and what is going on with that person at that time. We are analyzing those events around that person specifically, but it is all based on the principles of behavior, which are very well researched and known to be effective. And so exactly, there are many different procedures, but it is based on.
We had another question, and I don't know if you want to take it, Vince. It's pretty intense. How can you help a child with autism to talk? That's a big
How does
question.
you help a child with autism to talk? And again, it's a very broad question. The way we do it is we break it down into individual skills, right? We break it down into little individual steps, either it be first just doing enunciations of sounds, and then echoics of words, and then, repeating, multiple word sentences, teaching them how to request things or demand for things, right? We withhold something that they might want until we can get some type of an approximations, and then they get access, right? We make that connection that you use language to get things that are desired and preferred, right? If it's labeling things or tacting things, right? We take preferred items and have them, again, do echoics and try to get them to just imitate what the word would be. So it'd be milk or cat or, toy or anything that they're interested in. And we build those individual steps into longer utterances, longer sentences that are a little bit more meaningful. When we get a good base of that, then we look at what's called intraverbals, which is your social communication, your abilities to then communicate socially with others and saying hi and other pleasantries, byes, thank yous, getting them to being able to ask questions of another and so forth. So it really starts very small, very basic, and very repetitive, and can continue to grow out the child's life so that it becomes more abstract, complex, especially when you're getting into those, interverbals and social interactions. So I think a lot of our kids, hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of our kids that come to us don't have any language when they start. They don't have language, and they of course don't have speech. And we're able to, using ABA and using verbal behavior methods, we're able to break down their needs and teach them the individual steps that are necessary to be able to either vocally speak language or to be able to have speech through augmented communication devices and things of that nature.
And I want to say too, I know it's a plug, but
Right.
because I love it. Skills for Autism, and the number is 877-975-4559. If you're a person who prefers to call, that's all those things that Vince just talked about. The lessons, the curriculum for that is in skillsforautism.com.
Okay, good.
And you can get them there. And it's relatively inexpensive to get it. It's a monthly subscription. But if it isn't something that you can afford, you can apply for a grant
Right.
from Autism Care and
Act
Treatment
Today,
Today.
right.
Starting on October 1st, you're having an
Right.
open grant phase, and they can, and I know that's one of the grants that you guys love to give,
Right,
because
'cause
for you guys, it's
inexpensive,
inexpensive.
and it's something
Yeah.
we can make.
There you go. So
Available.
I want to put that out there. Vince, we love you. We're out of time, which I hate because there are so many things that we could talk about. But thank you so much for being with us and for being such a light. For people who don't know, you're the director of Card Family Services and offer a whole host of services to be able to help support families. How can people get a hold of you?
They can reach me at my email address, v.redmond, REDMOND, @centerforautism.com.
How do I potty train my 7-year-old? He will keep a diaper dry only when prompted to go to the toilet every 2 hours. He has no self-initiative to go on his own, even when I do not put a diaper on. He will just pee in his clothes. And so what advice do we have for this parent?
The first and foremost thing that I'd always look at is what reinforcement do we have in place for this? So what reward are we looking to have for this child when they do initiate? So that is something that is a reinforcement or reward that we should be looking at that's only delivered when they initiate. So they shouldn't be getting it for any other time of day, any other behavior that we are asking them to engage in. And so the key too is that this reinforcement would need to be delivered right after they initiate. Either it's when they walk into the bathroom, they're immediately getting the reward, or if it's something that we're asking them to say, such as go potty or I need potty, that immediately after they use the words, they're getting the reinforcement, because reinforcement or rewards need to be paired immediately after the behavior we want to see increase. Sometimes this is helpful to be introduced to the child of what the expectation is with some sort of social story. So like a first-person narrative of, when I need to go to the bathroom, I will tell mommy, and then mommy will, give me a reward, and everyone will be so proud of me. That's kind of what a basic social story. The other thing too is what might be helpful is leaving visual reminders up around the house. So having a picture of a potty and maybe even the words under there, I need potty, to have in places where the child's frequently going to see it as kind of another reminder, because I'm assuming, like all kids, they just get engaged in their day-to-day play and don't think about these things sometimes. Another thing to think about is definitely consistency across environments. So obviously your child is 7 years old. He or she is definitely probably in school. So what are they doing for potty training there? And are they implementing the same procedures that you're going to do at home? Because otherwise, if you're not being consistent, there's going to be confusion on his or her part and not knowing when he's going to get his reward, what expectation. So getting on the same page with your school or with anyone else that's going to be taking care of your child is really important. Another thought too I had was, if reinforcement isn't enough, or if the visual reminders aren't enough, another thing you could think about doing is setting a timer. So some sort of auditory timer that's going to go off on the interval that you want the child to go to the bathroom. So ideally right before they would normally have that accident. And then ideally then the timer kind of becomes your prompt, instead of you as the parent always having to say, please go to the bathroom, it's time to go, let's go. And they would ideally over time hear that timer, and it would just kind of be like, oh, it's time for me to go to the bathroom. An auditory timer like that could eventually be faded to some sort of like maybe vibrating timer, like a vibrating watch, or, when the kid gets older, if they're still needing some sort of prompt dependency, a lot of kids have, unfortunately, cell phones that you can set reminders on. So there's lots of ways to fade that to be more age appropriate as the child gets older. The other thing that I think is important is probably looking at if we can move away from those diapers completely, because having a child still be in diapers can be confusing to them, because when they do pee, there's no mess and it's just the diaper takes care of it. And I know you had said that the child doesn't seem to notice when he does pee in his clothes. So then we need to look at what are the consequences that happen when he does pee in his clothes. If he's in the middle of a preferred activity when he pees, then he should be removed from that activity and kind of encouraged to go change his clothes, put things in the laundry, maybe even help clean up the area that he peed on, kind of as a natural consequence. And that's obviously going to be something that's probably not preferred by this child. And so maybe that would help deter him from wanting to pee in his clothes. If he's in the middle of doing something non-preferred, or let's say you're having him do homework and he doesn't like homework and he pees in his clothes, then really you're looking at potentially the function in that situation being maybe he didn't want to do his homework anymore and he wanted to get out of it. And so then you'd actually be looking at, do I need to make sure I finish the activity before I go change him so he doesn't learn that I pee and then I get to escape the task?